Okay, so this is part 2 from my previous video. I tried to not be long, but then me and Ye beeping too much. So if you have not yet watched it, it's gonna pop up just now. I do recommend that you watch it if you want to know what has happened, but if you don't, it's fine. Okay, so part 2 is going to be looking at the finance series aspect of this whole shenanigan, this whole story. Obviously, part 1 was an explanation of my hospitalization, story time of what has happened, and just to update you guys that I'm okay, I'm alive, I'm fine. So now we're going to go into the numbers, the finances, and me explaining to you what happens to you as an immigrant when you come to Australia and what you guys should expect regarding your health, should you have any health issues and all of that. So where I'm going to start with this one, I'm going to start with the visa process, okay? Number 1, when you apply for whatever visa coming to Australia, you have to do your medicals. I will have an episode that discusses medicals and what to expect and the costs and the prices and all of that. I think this will actually come. Will it come in the finance series? It will not come in the finance series. I think it will be when I'm discussing the permanent residency visa, because that's when the medicals will be coming. When you're going to be applying for a visa, whether it is to visit Australia, like just a visitor, or living here temporarily or permanently, before leaving your home country, you're going to have to do a medical test. I have explained this in one of my previous videos to say, hey, you are going to have to do medical. And if you're already within the process of applying for a visa and all of that, you will be aware of it by now. I will not go into an in-depth conversation about that one. It's for later. But basically, just generally with a medical test, with a medical exam that they do, it is just to make sure that you don't bring any like these contractable diseases, like these communicable, these diseases and infections and all of that spread around. Like for example, COVID. I think now COVID is probably one of those things that is put in there for like when you do your medical exam to travel. Yeah, obviously they look for your TB, HIV, and just in case you've got like any medical, just in case you've got any like medical needs and high needs. The reason why Australia does this is just so they know, or okay, let's say for example, you're coming to Australia and you've got a heart problem. They know that if you're going to be a permanent resident or a citizen one day, that cost might fall onto the government because of Medicare and all of that, the government providing you that health service. So I'm not sure if this does determine if you do get in or not, but I know that if you are HIV positive, usually these first world countries will not allow you in. It's so unfortunate, so sad, but that's a discussion for another day. We can't go into that one now. The medical exam is for that. It's not too much of a big deal unless there's something that you should worry about. So with me, in my situation now after my hospitalization, so far I've not paid anything, thank you Lord. And if a medical bill comes, I will let you guys know. But so far I don't think I'm gonna pay for anything because I am on Medicare. Medicare is basically Australia saying to you as a permanent resident or as a citizen, we can take care of your health. So you have access to public health facilities and then you can use your Medicare. So it's like a medical aid, but not really. I think it's a good system. You know, coming from where we come from in South Africa, it is a good system because we have a lot of immigrants in South Africa, a lot that are also not documented, and they do clog the health system. They clog everything. And not to say that it is wrong of them to do. I don't think you can leave your country to want to be a burden to somebody else. Like I believe wherever you would have come from was worse. So the problem with this though, if the government does not regulate this properly, it becomes too much of a financial burden for a country. And that is what South Africa is currently experiencing, because if you've got a lot of immigrants who are undocumented or immigrants that are not able to attend to their own health and medical needs, and they are still getting these services, it becomes a problem. It really does become a problem. So that's what South Africa is experiencing. But here in Australia, you need to have that Medicare for you to not pay for health services here in Australia. It is a great system. Honestly, it is a great system. So if you're a citizen, that comes automatic with your birthright. That's fine. But if you're an immigrant and you are a permanent resident, as I explained to you guys in my previous video, you're just very much like a citizen. You just don't vote. The minute you get your permanent residency visa, I do suggest and recommend that you do get a Medicare card. So then your medical expenses usually get sorted. It's great for children because children get a lot of free services, like Marang and Thlologelo get free dental. So they have access to like proper dentists without us having to cough out even a cent, which is amazing. It is a program that goes through the school, so your child has to be enrolled in a school for them to be eligible for that. And I think it's from like the time they're born until the age of 17, 18, before they have to now pay for their own dentist bills. And then also, which is a great thing about being in this country and retiring in this country, if you're a pensioner or you've got these concession cards or something like that, like you're somebody who is flagged as the government needs to take care of you, then you also are able to get like free dental appointments. You're able to get like free dental services also as an older person. That's why I cannot wait to grow old in this country. So if you are within your productive years like of working, like from the time you're like 17, 18, usually here in Australia you can start working from 14. We'll have a discussion about that one. But yeah, from 17 to like whenever you will retire, you will then have to pay for your own dentals and all of that. I think other stuff as well, but usually the government does help with medical bills. The other good thing of having a Medicare card, you are able to have access to your GP, so you can have a private doctor, like your own GP. But here in Australia, everyone has their own GP. Like literally, people have like this GP that they've been seeing for 30 years and all of that. So the good thing about being in Australia and being a citizen, permanent resident, you can go to your doctor by appointment and all of that. And these things will be covered by your Medicare. You will have out-of-pocket things like maybe your medication and all of that. But sometimes the government does cover those costs. So I've not fully exhausted my options because you only will know when certain things pop up like now that, oh, this is how this thing works. But yeah, so far we've been using Medicare for our health appointments, going to a doctor, and also for the girls, and we have not paid anything out of pocket. I always compare things to how they're done in South Africa and how I've experienced things in South Africa. So trust me, even if I like got a very horrible service, as long as it's got like an Australian flag on it, I'm like, gold, beautiful, nice, amazing. I'm joking, you guys. So anyways, yes, that's the situation. Obviously now this raises a question for then if I'm an immigrant who's on a temporary visa or I'm just visiting, what does that look like for me and what should happen? So we are going to go back to the visa process, visa application process. So when you're applying for a visa, you have to read, and that's why I say to you guys, read. When I say to you, go here, read. So it is explained everywhere on the immigration website that if you are an immigrant that is coming to Australia, either on a temporary visa or as a visitor or whatever other visa that is not a permanent residency visa, then you are supposed to be, you have to be, in order to satisfy the condition and to continue having your visa. This is very important, guys. In order for you to satisfy the requirements of your visa and also be able to still continue having that visa when you are in this country, you need to maintain an active and up-to-date medical aid. Okay, so that's what you need to do. You need to then get a medical aid. So I know a lot of people are going to be asking, how will I know which medical aid to get when I'm like all the way in Africa, and I'm all the way in Africa and I don't know what medical aids. Hey, little now we also did not know. So you Google it. Google medical aids in Australia. Like some things are literally a Google button away. Like you don't have to stress yourself 3 days, full 3 days, wondering how am I going to get a medical aid in Australia. We are living in 2021. This is not 1991. So everything is online, literally. So what we did, me and my husband, when we then got to learn about that during our visa application, we just went on to Google top 10 medical aids in Australia. And then they will pop up. You look at them, you obviously compare the prices and all of that. That's what I would do because anyway, as I told you, I was unemployed. I had all the time in the world. So you do that, you compare the medical aids to see, okay, just how you would do, like even if you were working like back home, you would obviously compare them. I'm hoping that you would compare the medical aids so that you can get the best price and hopefully save money. So yes, there are different medical aids that are available. The good thing about medical aids here in Australia, they are very cheap. Like when I compare to what we were paying, because we were paying about 5,000-6,000 when we were in South Africa for 4 people, like me, my husband, and the girls, right? About 5,000-6,000, imagine. So here in Australia, I think the one that we had, we were paying about $200, around 200 and something for 4 people. It was probably one of like the cheapest ones. So we only had it for health's sake in order to satisfy the visa and not be then, taken back home. So the visa will get granted once they can see, okay, you have applied for like a medical aid and you are planning on keeping it active. And if you think you're going to be now clever, you're going to be now clever, now you're in Australia, you're going to do African ways, it's not going to work. When you come to this country, you need to maintain that medical aid. So you need to pay it. you need to pay it and make sure that it does not get cancelled. Because if your medical aid gets cancelled or anything like that, then you risk your visa also getting cancelled. And as I said, I'm very much fully 100% in support of this system, because as I told you, it is probably one of the reasons why South Africa is going down, and many African countries are also going down, because they cannot monitor these things. So people just come and go, they do as they please. So it's really not good on the economy. So Australia is very strict about that, to say, Bona, your health problem is your responsibility as an immigrant. We cannot invest in you like that. Is it an investment? Your health is an investment. We cannot spend so much money on you like that and you then leave. And we have exhausted our resources and everything on you, and then 5 years later you're going to go back to your home country. So that's why they do that, and I am very much full in support of that. It's a good system. So you need to make sure that you maintain that medical aid. You don't need to get an expensive one, as long as it enables you. And it also depends on like your health issues and if you've got children and all of that. There are a lot of factors that will determine the kind of medical aid you will need to get. For us, we were MacGyvers, we were chancers, we were just like, you know what, God and our ancestors will help us with this one. So we just picked a very cheap one, as long as it's got hospitalization for us, which was very important. Other extra things, trust me guys, as long as you've got good money management skills, you can out of pocket all the time. You can take it out of pocket. That's something that you can actually pay for that your medical aid does not cover. It's fine. You're in Australia, it's easy for you to bounce back. As long as you've got good money management skills, you've got the brains, you've got the qualifications, you've got the will, you've got the drive, you will be fine. So there's no need for you to get a very expensive over-the-top medical aid when you come this way. So you can get a medical aid that costs you about $200 to $300 a month. Usually I think it is a month. Yeah, I don't think it's a fortnight. If you're a smaller family or alone or just a couple, it might be cheaper. And if you're a big family, then obviously it's going to be like an extra cost and all of that. For as long as you keep reproducing, the cost will go up. If you're not a permanent resident or a citizen, then you need to maintain an active medical aid that is up to date here in Australia as an immigrant, and make sure you pay for it. And then you'll stop paying for it if you want to after you get your Medicare. So, you know, guys, God will always answer your questions. I really truly believe in it. And it's only when you are in the space and you are present enough to actually hear God's answer, because God's answer does not come like how people think it comes. I think somehow the Bible has sold to people that there's this big voice that comes and says, the answer is this. No, I don't think it happens like that. God always answers questions, but they might not come direct and not at the same time when you ask them. So a couple of weeks ago, it was just out of interest sake, I was talking to a colleague and I was like to her, dude, how does it work here in Australia? If you have a Medicare and then you've got a medical aid, when you go to hospital, do they then charge your medical aid? Because that's what happens in South Africa. I was wondering if the same thing happens here, because I am contemplating getting a medical aid just in case. Like, I don't know why I feel like I need to get a medical aid. I think it's kind of those habit things where you just feel like, if I don't have a medical aid, I'm not protected. So I am thinking of getting a medical aid, but I was not too sure. So I was like to Michaela, okay, Michaela, child, do you know if you have a medical aid, you would get charged now? And then Michaela was like, no, I literally don't know. And I was explaining to her how it works in South Africa. So when I was in hospital, my roommate was this Indian woman, lovely woman, oh, beautiful woman. Oh, she had beautiful, long Indian hair. And I was like, hey, when you sleep with one eye open, because I can chop and put on my head. Anyway, this answer came. It came. So this nurse goes to her. I don't know, is it a nurse? I don't know if it's a nurse or like the admin lady. One of the ladies came, and then they were like to her, because she has a medical aid, but she was in a government hospital. So they were like to her, ma'am, we just wanted to ask permission. Usually when we know that somebody has a medical aid, we ask them for permission to take funds from their medical aid to kind of like help the hospital with the costs and all of that. This is just to ask if this is something that you want to do. And I was like, oh, you can choose to say no. and she was like, it's okay. And then she was like, you know what? I've had this medical aid for years, hardly ever used it. I always go to like government facilities, so it's fine. As long as it's going to help the hospital, it's okay. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But then, as I was saying, the answer came. Like, even though God did not answer me then, it had to come with me losing my gallbladder. But the answer came. So this is the answer. If you have a medical aid and you are a permanent resident or a citizen and you are on a medical aid, sometimes you might have to also pay. So I don't think it is a matter of have to. Maybe you do have an option to say, "Ngabambi medical aid, don't touch my medical aid." But it's a good thing to do, because as I said, it helps the hospital to kind of still continue delivering this amazing service that they have delivered to their people. I do encourage people all the time, be a permanent resident as soon as you can qualify for it, because it gives you stability and the government will take care of you, because you are also taking care of the government. You are working, you went to school, you got an education, so you get as you give. You get what I mean? So far I've not paid anything out of pocket as an immigrant because I'm a permanent resident. I'm not too sure if there's a bill that is going to come, but if it arrives, the minute it arrives, I will let you guys know. But I don't think so. Like, I would have known. I don't think so. One thing that I will tell you guys, if you're gonna have a health issue, Australia is the place to have it. I have this one friend of mine who got diagnosed with cancer. She literally found out today. They had scheduled a surgery for her in the next coming like 2-3 weeks. And I was like, yeah. And this is like in a government hospital still. And for me, that was a shock, because coming from where we come from in Africa, usually a lot of people, the minute you hear cancer, you see death. Here in Australia, people are like, oh, I've had this cancer, I've had this cancer, I've had that cancer and this cancer. And you're like, you survived all those cancers. And they're like, yeah. In Africa, we don't survive cancer. The minute you have cancer, you are gone. You are dead. Like, this, I am telling you, like, I know people are going to be coming and saying, you're bashing your Africa. No. In South Africa, there was a documentary that was done. They were talking about people who were put on these insane wait lists for like either tumor removals, breast cancer, and all those things, where people die before they can actually get to the date where they were scheduled for surgery. I always say this, for us, I'm very grateful and thankful to God that me, my husband was a doctor. He had a medical aid. Imagine if we did not have a medical aid. Every time I think about that, I'm like, thank you, God, you never threw me away. God, thank you. Because for people who do not have those privileges, and of which is actually a lot of people in South Africa, people who want to be in a position where they can actually afford medical assistance and medical help, where you go and get your qualifications and now you're unemployed, you can't even help yourself. Africa. Ooh. So coming to a country like this, honestly, is a blessing and is a great privilege. I thank God and my ancestors on a regular basis. I always thank God to say, Shem, you loved me. You loved me so much to give me this. Like, every time I pray for Australia 2 times. You literally, whatever problem that you want to have it here. Because there are always services and people who are willing and ready to help you. If you have been thinking about relocating and you're on the fence, I'm hoping that this video is one of those things that will open your eyes. This is the country to live in. This is the country to raise your children in. This is the country to retire in. Because as I told you, there's so many benefits also that comes with you being a retired person in Australia, where the government does help to take care of your health and all those kind of things. And that's why we see aging populations in first world countries, because people die age 90, 100 and something, because their health needs are being attended to. Because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that's why they die so quick. They die like flies. Here, that these people don't die. They don't die. Like, you will be driving, you look on your side, you're like, you are 90 years of age and they're still driving. So people here really age well. People live well here and they're taken care of because there's the money to do that. In all honesty, there is the money. So if you were on the fence, you're undecided, this is the country to be at, it will improve your life. You will not regret it. This is the place to be. Anyways, you guys, I'm done selling Australia to you. Nobody pay me to do that. But I'm your girl. I am here to plug you in and let you guys know what is going on so that you can be clued up and be prepared when you go into this process. The other thing, guys, now watch this video with your parents, especially your parents who are in a relocating eligible age, because there is an age where you cannot relocate anymore. We will talk about that because I've got people asking me questions about that. But there is an age where it becomes very difficult for you to relocate. Do have a conversation with them and be like, Mama, you are a nurse. Daddy, you are an engineer. Do you think of leaving? And why are you still staying there? Just explore those things with them. Because the thing is, if your parents relocate, there's a chance that they might take you with, or they'll be able to afford you coming to school this side, and you can then build your life as a family. You will not regret it. Coming to Australia was the best decision I've ever made in my life, for myself, for my children, for my husband, for my family, even my family back in South Africa, because they are benefiting from me being here. Because sometimes I look at some of the things that are happening at home, like for my family, and I'm like, if I was still back home unemployed, we would have not been able to afford this. So I always thank God. Even when the problem comes, we are able to attend to it. I'm like, you know what, this can only be mercy and grace. So we are very thankful for that. So anyways, you guys, I am done. I am well. I am fine. I'm okay. Still in recovery, but I am okay. I am good. The girl is strong. Mina is strong. So anyways, you guys, bye bye. I'll see you again in my next upload. I hope you guys are good and happy new month. I hope December is gonna be great. So guys, bye bye.